Hey you guys, it's Matt. Today I'm going to be filming the Malazan Reader Tag because I was just tagged by my favorite booktube friend, Philip Chase. So there are 10 Malazan related questions that I'm going to answer for you guys. And the first one is, how did you find out about the Malazan series? And for that, I honestly don't fully remember, but I think I was just going on lists of best fantasy series ever. Because the problem I have is I read so much that I feel like I've read everything. Which isn't quite true, but I have read a lot of books, so I find it hard to find new ones a lot of the time. And even now, 6 years later, it's even harder to find new books. But I was searching through just best fantasy lists, and I stumbled upon that. I really, really liked the name Gardens of the Moon. I thought it was very cool, and so I decided to pick it up. And that was such a fantastic decision. So question 2, describe your experience reading the series for the first time. This one is a little bit dark, so trigger warnings, I guess, for mental health issues. But at the time, I was incredibly, incredibly sick, so I was going to end my life. But then I stumbled upon the Malazan books, and I just fell in love with them so, so hard. And they meant so much to me that I decided I couldn't end my life until I finished all of the Malazan books. And then I could finally do it and escape this pain that I was feeling. And by the time I finished all of the Malazan books, I no longer felt so bad every day. I had improved quite a bit, and so I feel like this series kind of saved my life because that was the only bit of light in a very, very dark time for me. So that's why the series means so, so much to me. So I'm actually going to answer question 4 before question 3. And question 4 is, what is your favorite aspect of the series? And the reason I love Malazan so much, it's realism. In a lot of books, things happen because the plot requires it, but in Malazan, I later learned that it was actually based off a tabletop role-playing game that Stephen Erickson and Ian Esselmont and his friends played in college. And so learning that luck and like the roll of the dice was a huge factor in what happened in the series really made it feel real to me. Say there's a battle going on between two enemy forces, and the general sends a runner to go deliver a message to another part of the army. What I love about Malazan is that in most books that would happen because the plot requires it, but in Erickson's book, just out of sheer bad luck, that arrow might take a messenger in the throat and he dies. And so that order never gets relayed, and then the army loses because of that. So the book just felt so incredibly real to me because things always happened regardless of what the plot really required. And then another part that I absolutely love is the fact that Erickson was an archaeologist and anthropologist. And so he really, really put all of that knowledge into creating this massive, amazing world that I love so much. Question 3 is, when did you realize the Malazan Book of the Fallen would be an all-time favorite series? And that would be the end of Dead House Gates. I really, really enjoyed Dead House Gates, and it was so incredibly, incredibly tense. And the way that that book ended blew my mind. Because, like I said, in most books, the plot would require a certain outcome. But in Erickson's, something different happens, and it was so incredibly epic and crazy that I was like, oh my god, this is going to be the most amazing series I've ever read. And I stand by that. It's still the best series I've ever read in my entire life, and I highly doubt I'll find anything to top it. Yeah, the end of Dead House Gates was just so incredibly epic that in that instant, I knew that this was going to be the series for me. Question 5, nothing is truly perfect. Describe a gripe that you have with the series. And honestly, as a whole, I don't have any problems with the series, with the writing, or with the philosophizing in all the books, or anything like that. My main gripe is Toll the Hounds. This book has truly like one of the best endings I've ever read in anything. It's probably like this long, and the Hound's Toll is what that night is called. It was so incredibly epic in this book, but all of this was just so incredibly boring and annoying. I really didn't care about the whole plot with the Kelak drink. I despise Clip so much. He's so annoying. Like, so incredibly annoying. And I really didn't care about his group of people and what they were doing. I really thought that I would love seeing Black Coral because I thought it was so cool that the entire city was just shrouded in Coral Ghislaine. Like, I found that really amazing. And I definitely was interested in some of that, but it wasn't holding my attention like it would in other books. So Toll the Hounds, despite having truly maybe the best ending in the entire series, is also my least favorite book because really everything but the end was really bad for me. So question 6 kind of ties into this. What are your favorite and least favorite installments in the series? And like I just said, my least favorite is Toll the Hounds. And actually another reason for that is I was really in love with Reaper's Gale. Reaper's Gale is my favorite book in the series, and I really liked what was going on there in Lether. And so having to jump back to Darujhistan just felt like a really huge interruption to me. And also, like I said, I didn't like the beginning or middle of it. And then my favorite book, Reaper's Gale, is truly fantastic. This book broke my heart. Okay, minor spoilers if you haven't read the series, skip to whatever timestamp. But in this book, I've literally tabbed every page where Beak appears. And going through this book, since Beak is only in this book, he only features, I believe it was 23 or 28 pages of screen time in this entire story. But the end of Beak's arc broke my heart. There are 3 pages in here where we learn what happened to Beak's brother, and those 3 pages truly shattered me. Like I said, I was having a really dark time while reading the series, and reading about Beak's brother's suicide was the most tragic thing I've ever read in any book ever. Another reason I love Reaper's Gale is I really love actually, first things first, I really love that Reaper's Gale finally ties kind of all 3 plotlines together. We get the amalgamation of the kind of first 2 storylines with the Bone Hunters. That whole army kind of incorporates the soldiers from Darujhistan and from 7 Cities. And so those 2 plotlines come together, and then they sail to Letheras, which combines all 3. And I loved seeing how these 3 arcs kind of intertwined with each other. And I knew that this was like preparation for the end, where all 3 plotlines finally converged. Another aspect I love about it is I love the guerrilla warfare. That's something that I always absolutely love. I really love the Karos Invicted storyline. Something I absolutely love in fiction, or in TV actually, is I love when there is a kind of police state where everyone is incredibly paranoid. They are told to report on their neighbors if their neighbors say anything that's like wrong or against the authoritarian government. An example is if you watched The Man in the High Castle, that TV show. I think that's based on the book actually. But if you watch that TV show, all of the Nazi children have to report on each other. And that happens in some other series that I love. But just seeing this kind of crazy police state, all of the authoritarianism, rounding up scholars and other people that disagreed with them and killing them, stuff like that was super interesting to me. And then finally, I love the money and trade aspect of Book 7 as well. And also, I love the Roulade storyline of Book 7 as well. So there is a lot to love in Reaper's Gale, and that is why it's my favorite book in the series. Question 7 is, how many times have you read the series? And the answer to that is 10. I've read the series 9.5 times. I'm currently on my 10th reread, or my 10th read-through of the series. And so I'm doing a different order this time. I'm doing Midnight Tides, Gardens of the Moon, Memories of Ice, Dead House Gates, House of Chains. And so I'm just about to finish Dead House Gates and start House of Chains very soon. And then from there, it's just the regular order from there on. Or if you want, you could do 9, 8, 10 for the end, but that feels like a huge interruption again. That's why I don't like Book 8 very much. Book 8 is beside Malazan, beside the Malazan Book of the Fallen, I suppose, what other Malazan installments have you read? And the answer to that is all of them. I've only read Book of the Fallen multiple times. The Untitled books I've only read once, I believe. And so, yes, I've read Malazan Book of the Fallen. I've read the Kirkanis trilogy, or the 2 books that are in it. I have read the Corbel Beauchelane short stories, novellas, and then I've read the 6 Untitled Malazan books, and then I've read the Path to Ascendancy trilogy, or series by Untitled as well. So I think I've read everything in this world, honestly. Anyway, I've talked for too long about my interests, but the 10th book, or the 10th question, sorry, is what advice would you give a first-time reader of the Malazan books? And my advice for them would be just don't stop. Like, just continue reading Gardens of the Moon, even though you're going to be incredibly confused. The further you get into the book, the more clear things will become, and by the end of it, you should be definitely hooked. And if you're not hooked, by the end of book 2, you will for sure be hooked. Some other advice would be, if you're really, really struggling, you could go onto the Tor.com Malazan Reread of the Fallen, I believe is what it's called. And that has 2 people. There's a veteran reader and a new reader, and they kind of do chapter breakdowns, chapter by chapter. And that is definitely a very, very helpful resource. Then along with that, you could watch my What to Know Before Starting Malazan video. In that video, you can watch the first half. I don't really spoil anything plot-wise. I just kind of spoil your learning about how the magic works. So if you don't mind that, you can finish the second half of the video as well. And then there are some podcasts that you can check out about the Mauson Series. I will link them down below if I can find them. But yeah, those are the 10 questions on the Malazan Reader Tag. I'm so glad that Philip Chase tagged me. He's definitely my favorite booktuber, and I was just so excited to do this because, as you know by now, Malazan means so, so, so much to me. So thank you, Philip, for tagging me. I might take some people down below. I'll think about it. But anyway, that's all, you guys. Have a good day.